All right, something cool here is with Spider One. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure for sure, dude. I can't stop listening to that new podcast of yours, Bleeders Digest.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's it's been a really fun project. And we had no idea. I'd never done a podcast before. We had some friends who have a podcast called the Boo Crew, which is more of an interview-based podcast.
Right.
They interview, actors and directors of horror movies, and they approached me and Chrissy about doing a story-based podcast. And it seemed like a really cool idea, just sort of like this really immersive, scare, all original scary stories, sound design them, guest actors, voice them. And it just, it's been a lot of work, but people really seem to be digging it, it's only been out for this is the first week. And the response has been pretty overwhelming.
Well, dude, you started off with two amazing stories right off the bat, dude. I mean, the wisdom.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And they only get better. Like there's definitely some, we've got, I think we've got about 11 or 12 in the can. And it's like, there's some good ones, man, that are coming. So.
Oh, you definitely got me hooked, man. I'm going to keep on going for more. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because there's a lot of scary story podcasts, but a lot of them are just, reading existing stories that they find online and I don't know, like this, we really kind of tried to take it to another level by making every story original that we write. And it's a lot of work because you have to have a new story every week. But we felt like that was the way to do it. Like we didn't want to just read, find old folklore or anything like that. We wanted to make sure we created, something that you couldn't get anywhere else. And other than Bleeders Digest.
Now, did you write the majority of the stories yourself, or is there more people involved? I know the second one was written not by you.
Yeah, no, well, there's four of us doing the podcast, myself, Chrissy Fox, and Trevor and Lauren Shand from the Boo Crew. So we're handling all of them. We haven't farmed any out yet. We were thinking about, once we get more established, maybe opening it up to listeners. If you have a cool story, maybe send it in. Maybe we'll read yours. But yeah, so far we've just been writing them all ourselves.
Now, how do you pick out the people to read the stories? I mean, the Spider Lady was read by the actor from The Nun. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to incorporate some guest appearances. Most of them we do ourselves. Like the first story is The Whisper. I do that one. That one's mainly me, but we'll have guest readers come in. Yeah, we got Bonnie Aarons on Spider Lady, who's from The Nun. One of the stories coming up in a few weeks is our friend Adam Bush reads it. He was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so we try to bring in maybe every 5 to 10 stories, bring in some guest readers.
Now, what's the process like, man? I mean, you got to read that a bunch of times to get it right.
It's funny. It's for me, we do it really fast. Like the writing takes a little while. You got to come up with a story, but we generally will go in and maybe bang it out in an hour in terms of the narration. But what takes more time is all the sound design. Then you bring the story back, and because we want it to be the kind of thing you put headphones on and just shut the lights off, and so we sound design everything. Tons of sound effects and cool music, all original music that we write, and so that's what takes longer.
Well, I mean, you're doing a fantastic job, dude. I mean, The Whisper alone just gets you right in the head. I mean, obviously that's what the premise, but
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm you never know when you do a project like this or anything really, whether it's putting an album out or making a movie. You never know what people are going to think, and yeah, we've been like really happy with people have been really cool and really supportive of this project, and it's only been out for a week, so we were I didn't know how the podcasting thing worked. I never did one before, so it's like, how is anybody gonna know about this? And we really started to see, even the first week we ended up charting in the top 60, I think. And it's, you track where you start seeing like, wow, somebody in Russia listened to this, somebody in Mexico listened to this, somebody in Saudi Arabia listened to this. And it's pretty exciting when you think about that you just sort of instantly can reach people all over the world with these stories.
Now, I know you do short films and things like that. Did you have these stories already written and just weren't sure where to go with them, or?
Some I had like the Whisper. I had the idea for a while. I was going to make that a short film, and if I remember correctly, the original concept was more technology based. It was this guy getting these text messages telling him to do stuff, and he just thought maybe it was one of his friends messing with him, and he starts to follow the lead and starts getting away with all this stuff. But the premise of this voice seemed much scarier to me, so I changed the concept to the Whisper. Yeah, but some of them, yeah. And there's another one that I have coming up that was a script I had for a short film that I just sort of tweaked to make one of the stories. But other ones were just purely for the podcast. Just just kind of sit around and wait for great ideas to hit you.
Now, is there any possibilities of turning these into short films or even an anthology series?
Well, that's that's kind of the big picture goal. I think you make these, you create all this content for this podcast, and all these stories, and we were, I've already been talking to a comic company about maybe doing a graphic novel based on all the stories, and and then the natural progression would be like some sort of anthology series or a film or something. And I think they're really, they're perfectly suited for that. So hopefully, once we build the podcast up, and maybe who knows what'll happen. Your son was like already pitching. He's like, you got to pitch to Netflix, man. You got so he's got. He's thinking he's got like, you should be my manager because that's a good idea.
Definitely. Now, there's a lot of reboots going on. Is there any chance of Death Valley getting picked back up and you redoing some stuff with that?
I don't know, man. That was, I would love to do that again because that was one of the funnest times I've ever had in my life making that show. And it really was a shame that it just didn't. I mean, it did really well for that one season on MTV, but I think they were just the wrong network for it. They just didn't quite know what to do with it. And there, over the years we had talked, I've had discussions with the other producers of the show to maybe resurrect it somehow. We just haven't really had any success doing it yet. So maybe it's just, maybe it's time has passed, but who knows, maybe, or maybe it'll resurrect in some other weird version. Originally when I came up with the idea, I had pitched it as a not a comedy, as a serious drama. So maybe I could bring it back as that.
Well, that'd be definitely cool. I could see that for sure. Now, didn't you originally shoot the pilot where it was a real show, right?
I did. Well, the way I ended up selling that show was, I went out and just shot a really cheap version of it, like almost like a trailer, just some friends and a camera. And I learned a lot from that experience because I learned that that's really how you make things happen. You got to do it yourself. And, a lot of people have great ideas, but they think somebody's going to come along and give them a bunch of money or help them. And I feel like I've learned over the years that you can't sit around and wait for other people. And that's why, we've started making our own movies, and because no one's going to do it for you. You got to just, a lot of work and a lot of effort, and sometimes you got to spend your own money, and you got to believe in yourself, and that's really like, the Death Valley thing really taught me that the way to make things happen is just to be aggressive and just don't wait around for somebody else to help you.
Now, the pandemic's definitely changed everybody's lives. I mean, especially with you being a musician. Is that why you're transitioning into podcasts? And I know you got a film coming out, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really, the pandemic it was weird, man, because we had such a busy year planned for the band, and we had tours booked through the whole year. We were going to Australia. We had just put a new record out, and then everything just stopped. And like most of us, we thought like, well, in a month we'll be back to normal. And then it was like, well, maybe 2 months, 6 months. And then, after about a year, I was just like, well, I don't know when this is ever going to come back. So yeah, through all that downtime, started to focus on all these other projects, writing scripts and filming these movies. We would do it very safely with small crew, and just, it's kind of a blessing in a way. I mean, yeah, it hurt the music situation, but it really forced me to focus on new projects, and it's opened up a whole bunch of new avenues. And music's still there. I mean, we're planning on going back on the road in September if everything still stays, positive. So I'm looking forward to getting that going again. But yeah, it was, definitely allowed me to do a lot of things.
Well, it definitely had to be a hard hit all the way around. I mean, from not being able to tour, you put out that fantastic album, The Noble Rot, last year, and it was like it kind of, missed its mark over just because you weren't able to push everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it was weird, man. I hadn't, I've been doing this band for, I don't even know how many years, 25, 30 years. And I don't think I've ever gone more than a couple of months without playing a show. And all of a sudden it was like, it's been, I don't mean, it's been, the last show I played was in February 2020. So, I mean, it's been, I've never in my life spent this much time away from music, and
Right.
it's strange. And it's weird now thinking about going back on the road, because I got to get that part of my brain going again. And real, I'm, sometimes I sit around the house. I'm like, do I remember any of these song lyrics? Because it's been so long since I've had to do these songs.
I could get a teleprompter for the.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Now, you are a pioneer of the new metal scene. What was it like creating a genre? I mean, there was nothing like that at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody who was part of that thought of it that way. I definitely didn't. Where that term came from, who knows? Like, I don't know who made that up. And we didn't really even feel like we were part of it. Like, we felt like we were just doing our thing, and we didn't particularly feel like a part of a scene. But now, when I look back on it, it was a pretty cool time. Like, the variety of bands from that era, it's pretty impressive. And people like to say everything's new metal, but when I think back, everyone was kind of doing their own thing. It was a scene, but everybody was very different. You had, us doing this weird electronic metal, sci-fi influenced, and you had guys like Manson and Rob doing the sort of darker horror-esque, and you had Limp Bizkit doing like party rap music, and Korn doing this. Everybody was like really doing interesting things, but somehow it all fit together. And it was really in a really exciting time, because it was also one of the last times where rock music was like the biggest thing.
Right.
I mean, it was a massive movement, and we were all playing huge shows. And we were also part of, like, it's interesting, rock music has kind of been pushed to the side. It isn't, it isn't really part of the mainstream. But back then, we'd get played on MTV. You'd be watching MTV, and there'd be a Britney Spears video, and then a Powerman video, then a Korn video, then a Christina Aguilera. We were in, it was one of the last times where rock music was actually, treated as the same as everything else. I feel like now, if you're in a rock band, you're like, it's tough, man.
Well, I mean, it was such a great time. I mean, I was in high school when all that was going on. It was like you guys put grunge to bed, you put rock back up where it was. You know what I mean? It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a great time, man. And it was like, there's so many of those big tours happening. Like the Ozfest was sort of at its peak, and it was exciting, man. It was definitely an exciting time to have that kind of success.
It's just interesting that the new metal term, though. I mean, there's definitely some bands that aren't metal that get locked into that for sure.
It's funny. I think that because for a while, new metal, was frowned upon. Like anything that gets really popular, then people don't. But I feel like its influence is you're starting to hear it more in a lot of younger bands now. I think those bands are now discovering the 90s, like, whoa, the early 2000s, and finding all these bands. And I definitely hear the influence in some of the newer bands.
Now, you mentioned that you plan on touring in the fall. I mean, it's got to be hard not knowing if it can happen or not. You know what I mean? I mean, I see shows are starting to go around, but I don't know. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, we've I can't tell you how many times over this year we've booked tours and then canceled them and booked them and pushed them and canceled them again. And even like earlier, we started getting a lot of offers for the summer, and I was like, look, let's just wait till the fall, because who knows what the summer is going to be like. I mean, I know bands are starting to go out now, and yeah, I mean, I hope everything's still, as of right now, things look good, but man, who knows? I feel like we got about an 80% chance it's all going to happen.
Well, it's crazy that the mask thing it's like you don't have to wear it anymore as long as you get the vaccine, but we're not going to check if you got it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, like people that didn't get the vaccine are probably more likely to not want to wear the mask. So there's no way it makes any sense. It's just like, I just hope that enough people, and the numbers are low enough. And I mean, it's still going to be a weird experience. I mean, when we go on tour, it's not going to be the kind of thing where you're going to feel comfortable like hanging out, after the show. And, it's going to create a different vibe.
Definitely, for sure. I mean, all that a meet and greet, or you never know anymore. You look at somebody like they're the enemy now, regardless of the
Yeah, man, it's weird. It's a weird situation to be in that kind of social setting. I mean, you see it now with like, you watch sporting events and, it's full and it's like it used to be, but it's weird seeing it. It's like, whoa, that seems so strange to see that many people together.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's going to be different all the way around, especially when you're trying to route something out. I mean, each state is still a little bit different. I mean, everyone's starting to open up fully now, but it's there's still certain restrictions in certain places and everything like that. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, you're right. It's different everywhere you go. In some states, like the numbers are really low, and others it's going up. And like I live in California, where we're about the, in terms of numbers, about the best as good as you can get right now. But then you head off to some other states, a whole different situation.
Now, when you're writing music for Powerman 5000, I mean, do you have it in your head that this is either going to be in a movie or in a video game or in a sporting event or something like that? Because I mean, your songs are played in so many different places.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that in mind, but it is. I think it is over the years. It has sort of been in the back of my head that is kind of I always liked that we made music that fit in those places, so, these sort of up tempo, exciting songs, so, and yeah, we got really fortunate to be a part of so many great soundtracks and video games that just kind of become part of what we do. I have so many times people like, message me like, oh, I'm at the Boston Bruins game and they're playing one of your songs. And it's like, cool, man. If we make music that inspires people, that's awesome.
On all the things that you've been featured in, do you have a favorite?
Well, I think the one that I didn't even realize it at the time how big it was the Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game.
Right.
Because I'm not a gamer and I didn't really play video games back then. And over the years, I've realized that so many people discovered us through that video game. I have guys coming to shows now with like this old ass Tony Hawk video game cassette for me to sign. It's like, I didn't realize how big of a thing that was. And so I'm always forever grateful for that video game.
Now, were you asked when SpongeBob did that parody of Powerman 5000 beforehand?
I have no idea I have to imagine that whoever did that is aware of who we are, because it was, what was it, like Stingray 5000 when worlds collide. I'm like, they have to know who we are. But I've never spoken to anybody who worked on SpongeBob, but that's another pretty amazing thing. Doesn't get much bigger than SpongeBob.
Now, you've done some amazing tours throughout your career, and one that sticks out for me is when you open up for Kiss. What was that like?
For Kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about that. I mean, that was a weird one because I was like a lot of, you know, people my age grew up listening to Kiss, you know, and from a really young age. I mean, Kiss was probably one of the first rock bands that I discovered, you know, and when I was little, they were like superheroes, you know. It was so bizarre, like because you know, back then it wasn't like you had such access to everybody and there was no internet. So you all you had were these pictures that you looked at on these album covers. And man, I remember being a little kid and just staring at like Kiss Destroyer or Kiss Alive and being like, what is this? You know, like, and so to have that come full circle and just be there, especially with it was all original members, makeup. It was trippy, man. It was, I remember sitting in the audience one night watching it going like if I could tell my 10-year-old self that you're
Right.
going to be like, you know, how would you even explain that, you know? So that was, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Now, how did the crowd react to you guys opening up? I mean, because you definitely are way harder than Kiss.
Well, you know, it's funny. When we did the Kiss tour, it was on our very first album, which was called Mega Kung Fu Radio, which actually wasn't. It was quite different than I think the sound that we eventually became known for. I mean, that album was much more like almost like funk rock with like some, you know, and it was very stripped down. We didn't do any of the electronics back then, and so you know, for a Kiss audience, I think it was really weird. Like I don't know if they got it, but the funny thing is when we got on the Kiss tour, and I remember this clearly, it was first day, Kiss's tour manager comes on the bus, our bus, and says, I want to talk to you guys. And we're like, okay, cool. And he's like, listen, this is the way it's going to go. You're going to get booed off the stage. You're not going to sell one t-shirt. No one cares about you. They're all here to see Kiss. And he's like, oh, and by the way, if you see any of the guys from Kiss, don't talk to them. Walk the other way, you know, like all this stuff. We're like, holy shit, this is gonna suck. Like, you know, and honestly, it was the exact opposite. Like, I thought we did great every night. People dug it. We sold some t-shirts. The guys in Kiss were super nice to us. Like I remember even one day we were sound checking, and all of a sudden I see Paul Stanley come like walking on stage, and we're like, oh shit, let's get out of here. And we start packing up our gear, and he's like, it's all right, fellas. Take your time, you know, like in that Paul Stanley voice. So it was, you know, what we were told it was going to be ended up not being what it was at all. We had a great time.
That's awesome, man. Now, with all this time of you not being on the road and you having so many projects going forward, what do you think your focus is going to be?
Well, I mean, I think you know, for me, the band is always a priority because it's just like, it's really who I am. You know what I mean? It's hard to think of my life without Powerman 5000. But you know, I definitely, as I get older and you know, the film stuff becomes really not more of a priority of the band, but more of a priority in my life because I can see it's being something that could do forever. You know what I mean? And it's really fun and exciting and it's challenging in a lot of other ways. You know, the thing with music and touring and being in a band, I don't know if I'm going to see anything I haven't already seen or do anything I haven't already done. But with movies and with this podcast, it's all new. You know, it's new territory for me. So it's really exciting. So I'm just going to try and do as many things as I can. And, you know, I think that's for me always been the way I approach stuff is I just want to do everything, you know. It's not, you know, I've never been like, I just do music. I always, you know, even within the band, I've always done the artwork and I've directed the videos and worked on the wardrobe. And, you know, so I just like to always be as creative as possible.
So I would say going forward, you're probably more selective on like doing like full on tours and things like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I definitely tour less than I used to. I mean, in the earlier days, I mean, I would be on the road 10, 11 months of the year, you know, just be out there all the time. But, you know, now I'm a little more select. I don't tour quite as much. You know, I have a family, I have kids. It's like, so I don't want to be absent, you know, in their lives. So what I try to do is if I go out, I'll go out for 3 or 4 weeks, then come home for a month, and maybe go out for 3 or 4 weeks, and so I'm not gone as much as I used to be. So and I also try to play as many shows as I can. Like some bands go out and they'll play 3 shows a week. So you end up, your tour ends up being really long, but we'll do 6 shows a week. So I can cram 25 shows in 30 days. You know what I mean?
So being as home as much as you did, I mean, on your mindset, was that like just the break that you might have needed for a little bit? You know what I'm saying? And being family time and things like that.
I think there was some benefits to it for sure. And like I said, it sort of also forced me to be busy in other places. But it did get, I think like everybody, it got weird, man. It got like, you start, we had to sort of force ourselves back into, almost like forcing a schedule in your life, because I remember a stretch of this pandemic thing where it's just like, what day it is, you're like staying up too late, sleeping late, doing all and you can really like lose some, purpose, and I think that I think it's been a struggle for a lot of people, and especially musicians, like who don't do anything else, and suddenly, or crew members, guys who road crew, they're just like, what do I do?
Yeah, for sure. Now, during this time off, did you write any more Powerman 5000 music?
Not yet, but it's funny. I took a break from it. Didn't really feel hugely inspired musically, but now I'm starting to get that itch again. So I have a feeling my goal is to have a couple things written before we hit the road again. Maybe we'll have a new song to play or something,
I mean, it just has to be hard, especially when you did put out such an awesome album, and then you didn't get the opportunity to tour to push it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like writing a record can take a lot. I mean, it's writing. I mean, some everyone's different. I mean, some guys write, we wrote 60 songs, and I mean, for me to just get enough songs for an album, it's a lot of work, man. It's like, especially since I've put out 11 albums now or something. It's like it's like anything, you start to get to a point where like, what else do I got here? What you know what I mean? So generally you wait for that inspiration to come. Usually it's sort of like I get inspired to, for more like what do I want the next batch of songs to be like? Like the last album was more like a little less guitar, more, almost like dark wave synthesizer music. But who knows? Maybe now I'll be like, okay, cool. Let's turn the guitars up, make a really loud, messy album. And usually that's what gets me on the path to making new music, is kind of figuring out the next vibe, whatever is exciting.
Now, going forward with Bleeders Digest, is it going to be one episode a week, two sometimes, something like that, or?
No, the plan is to do one a week. And that's where we're at right now. We've got enough done now to last us for quite a while. I mean, we'll always have to be making them because, every week a new one's out. So yeah, one episode a week. We'll probably try to do it in like break it up into like seasons, maybe do like 24 a season. And then, I mean, I'd like to just do it as much as we consistently as we can, so that's the plan.
Have you had like an extremely long one yet? I know the Whisper is like 13 minutes. The other one, Spider Lady, is like about 24. Has there been something?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta tune this down a little bit.
I think that, I think we've got a couple that approach that half-hour mark, but I think we don't really have anything longer than that. I like them to be a little shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the kind of thing you listen to, like maybe you're driving to work or you got a few minutes. If it's too long, it's hard to get people to like dedicate that much time, So maybe if we have a longer concept, we'll break it up into parts. That could be an idea.
Awesome. Well, people want to follow up. They want to know to listen to Bleeders Digest. They want to know Powerman 5000 dates, things like that. Where do they go for everything?
Yeah, I mean the usual places. On Bleeders Digest, you can find us on every, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Plus all the social stuff. Just look up Bleeders Digest. It's spelled Digest, DIE. And then Powerman, wherever we're, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're out there.
Now, is there any one guest you would love to have on Bleeders Digest?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's a lot of people. But I think we're gonna be able to pull in. We have a lot of friends in the horror world, so you know, we've got we'll have some cool guests coming up. I don't know if I have a one dream guest, but we'll probably get some good surprises in there.
Awesome, man. It's been a pleasure.
If you have any suggestions, what do you think? Who would be good to read one?
I'd say Bill Mosley. He's got a great voice, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Bill would be great. Yeah,
You think of different people who's got awesome. Tony Todd, obviously, Candyman. I mean, he's got some talent with that voice right there.
yeah, no, he's got a great voice. Yeah, I think that Tony Todd would be great. Yeah, stay tuned, man. We'll get him.
Awesome, man. I love Reader's Digest so far, and Powerman 5000 is one of the top fucking bands out there.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Thank you for talking to me, and I can't wait to see what comes out of you next.
All right, man. Thanks. See ya.